Welcome to Season 3 of the Take the Leap podcast. We want to thank you for being a part of this journey with us.
Whether you're just starting to tune in or you're a longtime listener of the podcast, you can expect to hear from entrepreneurs in all stages of their journey, how they got to where they are, and all the mistakes and victories they've had along the way.
We're excited to share new guests and have some returning folks from our first 2 seasons. Thank you for being here, and we hope you enjoy this episode.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Take the Leap podcast. We're so excited to have a returning guest, Mark Mohammadpour, APR fellow PRSA, to the podcast. Mark is a founder and chief wellbeing officer of Chasing the Sun. After spending his public relations career working for brands such as Microsoft and the U.S. Army, after losing and keeping off 150 pounds over the last decade, Mark founded Chasing the Sun to empower people to prioritize their well-being so they can shine in the family room and the boardroom. Chasing the Sun's inclusive and interactive keynotes, workshops, and training programs help companies to design their culture of well-being. Mark, we are so excited to chat with you again today. Hi.
Hi, it's so wonderful to be back. And again, congratulations on season 3. And it's just wonderful following your journey from afar and bringing in this group of fellow entrepreneurs together to learn from one another. And it's really inspiring to see. And just congratulations to both of you.
Thank you so much, Mark. That means so much. And it's really cool because I feel like both of us have known you professionally in different circles for a long time. Like our paths have crossed quite a bit over, I don't even know, the last at least 5 years, if not decade. And so it's been really cool to watch you and your journey too, because you and I met when you were working for an agency, and yeah, like your career has changed quite a bit. Ashlyn's has in mine, obviously. So it's just, it's really fun to just see the journey of all of us as we've navigated through our careers, our family life, and through this world that is completely different from what it was when we first met. So yeah, it's really fun.
I love it. I cannot agree more. I think, I think about my parents. They were lifelong in their individual jobs for a long time. And, I don't want to speak for either of you, but when I grew up, the idea was kind of, you start a job and you're there.
You stay.
Yes. Definitely. And of course there were serial entrepreneurs in past generations, but it feels like, especially in the last 5 years, we have looked at our relationship with work so much differently. And I think, social media and just awareness and having conversations has helped sort of expedite that, because we're able to see that in others that otherwise we may not, have been able to. And so, and as part of that, being able to learn and adjust, and, the three of us are just a few of those examples.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I love that. Well, how have you been, Mark? How are things going since we last talked to you? What's business been like? How's 2025 going?
2025 is looking really well. I made a decision late in 2024, early in 2025, to focus on keynote speaking. If I were to rewind, when I launched Chasing the Sun in 2019, I was primarily offering one-on-one and group coaching around health for the PR professional, for the communicator. I was doing a little bit of public speaking, but I wasn't making that the primary revenue generator. Well, a few months in, speaking opportunities were starting to come. The pandemic and lockdown happened. That helped me sort of fine-tune the topics that I would discuss beyond physical well-being, and more about a broader look at employee well-being and people's relationship with work. And as kind of related to that, the culture of teams. And that's what we chatted about the first time we discussed, is really helping to redefine culture and well-being. I think throughout that journey, as I'm learning about myself and go to market, I've realized that, when I talk about myself as a consultant, that seems very broad to a lot of people. And where I was seeing a lot of opportunities was in speaking. And so I wanted to focus on that as a primary revenue driver, because I can make money from it, I do well at it, and I love it. I love on stage and off stage, coming off the stage and having interactive conversations with folks. I love coming in and running offsite, facilitating conversations with teams. And I decided to focus on that. Now, is that the only thing that I offer? No, but it's easy for me from, a sort of an elevator pitch standpoint to be able to say, I'm a keynote speaker, or what do you talk about, and then have that conversation with folks. As a result, it's helped from the brand standpoint and how people see me, and from a referral standpoint and an opportunity standpoint, to know that I'm someone that's trusted and can come in and deliver and host a really great conversation around employee culture and well-being. And so, that took a few months to sort of adjust and communicate and fine tune, but I'm feeling really, really good. It's been a good year so far. It's going to be a great fall. And I'm already booking engagement for 2026 and have leads for 2027 and 2028, as silly as that sounds.
That's great.
I'm really excited about where the business is going.
I love that.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I've been working with folks who are wanting to be keynote speakers, and I actually I show off your speaker reel a lot when I'm like, I know, because I know Mark is showing up at all of these places. So I'm like, if we want to look at something that's clearly working, but it's such a nice comparison where I'm like, okay, so this is why I'm saying I need to film you saying these words, because you do have the examples of you at different conferences, but you have that overarching narrative that needs to be said to make it cohesive. So yeah, I'm really excited for you. And I was in your, when was that? Thanksgiving I think it was during COVID or just coming out of COVID, in that very specific, here's how you get your health in order, so that you don't lose track of it during the holidays. And I remember that just being such a great grounding experience in that time. So yeah, it's definitely stuff I think a lot of people need to hear about. And especially, like you said, because our relationship with work has changed. COVID completely turned it upside down, where now we were working out of our, most of us were working out of our homes and having to manage what it's like to have kids at home and people at home, and just going through different things that you were not exposed to in a normal day to day as well. So yeah.
And opening up those conversations is really key. And I so appreciate you bringing up the Thanksgiving 2020, 2021. I think,
Yeah.
that was really where I was starting to build out the confidence for me, helping to speak about something that I was passionate about, had background in, had experience, and be able to help build rapport and provide value to an audience. And just think exponentially every year, just building on that and discussing new topics and learning how to engage with folks. It's something, as an entrepreneur, no matter what field you're in, it's so wonderful to see people's heads nod and come to you and say, great job, and proactively speak on your behalf, as I know both of you have received and given to others as well. And I think throughout all this, and I think your listeners will hopefully nod, is that this is really a kind of a battle against time, right? And so as you're thinking about building your business, of course, there are other people who speak about employee culture and well-being, but I as much as it's smart to look at what they're doing or how they're talking about it, for me, it's really, how am I showing up every day, and how am I genuine to who I am? And that's just been part of this journey over the last few years. But it all started with those who supported me, including you two from day one, and it's just meant the world.
That's awesome. And I love, there's a couple things you said that I love. One, I love how you highlighted this journey that a lot of entrepreneurs go through, which is you might start with one thing and over time you kind of evolve, right? That's kind of the entrepreneurial way. When you start your business, life changes around you. And so you kind of have to evolve with it. And so I just love looking at your career. I'm totally not surprised at all that you are now pretty much focused on keynote speaking, when you come from a PR background. And I've, seen some of your talks through PRSA. And, I think it's funny how you can kind of look back and think of all the lessons that you've kind of learned and all the things that changed and like how this relates to that. And, I think that's really interesting. So.
Oh, I appreciate that. I think one of the things, and again, this is something that you both and your listeners can relate to, is, we're all experts in the areas that you're in. I mean, you both are expert digital marketers, social media, like all those aspects, and you sort of, I don't want to speak for you both, but there might be times where you sort of take it for granted, and this is very sort of easy to you. And you take a step back and you realize, your clients are hiring you for a number of reasons. Perhaps they do have the skills, but they don't have the time, or probably for the most part, they don't have the skills, right? So, and it's something they could do, but maybe not as well, or take them long. If I have a leaky faucet, I'm sure I could go on YouTube, or I could read a book and figure out how to fix it, or I could hire a plumber and I would trust their approach to doing it. And I think when you're an entrepreneur, especially in the services industry, we have this set of experience and expertise, and it feels very natural to us. And when we come and talk about it or we counsel, I just always want to remind us that we know more about our craft than 99.99% of the world. And as long as you can ethically and legally and and with confidence approach your counsel, you're well and established as the credible expert and trusted advisor for those that you're working with, and that has been a big sort of mindset adjustment or shift for me in the last few years, and being able to pull in my PR expertise and apply it to the well-being of employees and those I'm speaking to through my keynotes.
I love that.
Yeah, that's great.
So I want to dig deeper into the keynote speaking. I'm curious, like, what has been I have two questions related to this. So what has been like one of the most surprising keynote appearances or workshop appearances that you've had? And then also, how are you juggling speaking engagements with your other client work that you're maybe doing as well?
Yeah. Well, one of my most unique ones was a client. They're part of a U.S. commodity organization. They've been a client that I've worked with off and on for the last several years, running offsites at their headquarters and virtually. And I was supposed to go to Chicago to host another set of offsites, and they called me a few weeks before and they said, Mark, we have to actually be at another place. We're going on a road trip. Our company of 25 employees, we're going on a bus and going on a road trip somewhere. And I said, okay. And we kind of had this discussion, and they said, could you run the workshop on the bus while we were going to the destination? I said, absolutely. Let's do it. So I was first in Denver. I was in Denver emceeing and speaking at an event, and then I had to hop on a plane to Chicago, which is where the organization was at, and got on a bus, and I had my microphone, and I was trying to show slides on, over my laptop, but people could view them on the phone because how they viewed it. And, we made the best of it. And I felt really, really proud that we could kind of make those adjustments on the fly and ultimately help people learn. And hopefully pass the time a little bit during a multi-hour,
I was going to say, that feels like a good, nice, nobody can get up, nobody can leave. You've got a little bit of a captive audience.
Yeah.
So from kind of an experience standpoint, that was one. I think from an audience standpoint, when I started this business, I was primarily working with PR communications folks. It's now expanded significantly to people in HR. So I speak at HR conferences, and also the verticals that I speak with. Just over the last 12 months, I've spoken with organizations of people who run tour companies, like tour operators, people who work for in HR for credit unions. I've spoken with home builders associations. I'm speaking at a conference later this year in Vegas for folks in higher education who work kind of in operations for colleges and universities. And so that's just something that I'm really proud of is sort of breaking out of my bubble, my PR and comms folks that I love, but I feel really proud and I always feel challenged when opportunity comes for me to be able to deliver this message to a new audience. I always see it as an opportunity. I never say no, and just because I love the opportunity and what that leads to, and the people that I meet, and all that stuff. So that's the first part of the answer. The second part of your answer is, I think, part of the work of Keynotes is a typical sort of business development. You might get some referrals from clients, and a lot of trade associations that I will go reach out to that are looking for speakers for various conferences. So there's a lot of legwork as far as that's concerned to be able to respond to inquiries and things like that. I think the benefit of my job is because my headquarters is here at Chasing the Sun HQ at my home. I can sort of choose when or where to be able to counsel my clients remotely, or here at home, and so I think a lot of it is just trying to make sure that if I'm going to be traveling in a particular place, that I'm blocking that time and holding it for them. And I think that's really key when I'm keynoting at a particular city. I'm there at least a day. I want to attend as much of the conference as you can. Some keynote speakers like to fly in, speak, drop a mic, and leave. And I try, to not. I want to make sure that I can attend a pre-conference event or stay after. Maybe even be part of a pre-conference session, lead a pre-conference session at the very least to engage. And so it's just making sure that I'm present and I'm thinking about not just the paycheck from that 60 or 90-minute talk, but what comes out of that, because that's where the real opportunities come, is when people come up to you afterward and say, hey, that was great, can I chat with you more? And you might see them at breakfast the next day, you extend the conversation, you schedule a meeting for the week or week after when when everyone gets back, and then that's how you sort of extend that conversation along with some of the other technology tools that I use. But I think it's always an evolving process. I love it all the same.
Yeah. But I think it comes back to that skill set that you're obviously so good at and that you've honed over your career, which is that relationship building piece that also comes with speaking and being in front of people. Is, we're all humans. We all need to relate to each other and we all have to connect to each other. And so I think that's a piece that maybe sometimes people might forget about or not really factor in to their planning. That's so important.
This is something that I think the pandemic, again, unfortunately, we're going to be talking about the pandemic and the impact that it had on us for a long time. But one of the things was around connection and taking for granted those in-person engagements. And now we're in this sort of awkward phase where you have some companies that are demanding their employees back 5 days a week. There's a need to get back together, but then you're also having people feeling very isolated. My PRSA, I'm the workplace wellness columnist for the Public Relations Society of America, and I just submitted my copy for the September issue around isolation, around loneliness, because it is an issue for everybody, and trying to chat through some things about that. And the one thing about sort of events and conferences that I've seen, and this isn't necessarily new, but it is heightened, is there is such a desire for people to be at conferences and events, not just to learn, not just to sit in keynotes, but to connect with one another. Because I think they found that it's so rare. And so you're seeing a lot of event planners really think about how do you balance the breakouts and the keynotes and the general sessions with the time to connect, and then also how do you make time to connect, but also think about some ways that you can integrate learning and development opportunities with small groups, or that it's a little bit more organic than that typical, you have an opening keynote, 4 breakout sessions, lunch, keynote, 4 breakout sessions, happy hour, everybody go home. And so that is something that I'm seeing as well. And so as I think about how I design my keynotes, I want to make sure that I have that in mind as well.
Yeah, that is a major complaint that I have about a lot of conferences is that there is so much emphasis on that learning and experiencing and all of that, but there's no implementation time. So I feel like a lot of times if you don't have that ability to like connect and get to know folks and like be like, okay, cool, we're working on the same thing types of things, let's make sure we have a follow-up, like you said, after whatever you're doing. But yeah, a lot of them don't build in that time, and then you're also just so exhausted because yeah, you've had the breakfast and the lunch and the dinner and the happy hour and the concert that they put on and all of this. Like
Yeah.
the last few conferences that I've been to, I'm just like, I am exhausted. They're not like, you're not going to the conference. I was like, no, or the concert. And I'm like, no, I'm gonna go chill by myself in my hotel room, eat some dinner alone, and like just relax after this
Yeah,
day of just being so on, with so many people. Because it is, even as an extrovert, I was like, it is exhausting to be around
yeah,
so many people and
Yeah.
and having that time and making sure that it is not transactional what you're doing with folks, that you're like, no, I'm serious, here's my business card, I will connect with you, we'll put a calendar time and do that deeper discovery. But yeah, it's hard to maximize that when you're in those kinds of spaces too.
yeah. That's something that I'm trying to evolve in delivering my keynotes. I don't stand behind a podium. I barely stand on stage. And depending on how big the space is, if I have the opportunity to come into the audience, I do. So I use a lot of online polling to ask multiple choice and open-ended questions about various things and have conversations about it. Because to your point about implementation, it's hard to talk about implementation in 60 minutes, but I try to at least get people to learn from one another and then give some thoughts on how you can implement around employee culture, well-being, around empathy, around communication, and do that. But my goal, what's in the back of my head, is how do I, in the next year or two, really help make this an experience where we can in real time try to solve a problem. And I realize that's what you do typically in the workshops and breakouts and kind of those long extended sort of sessions. But I want to be able to, in a general session and with everybody there, provide a really valuable real-time takeaway for folks that is based on a particular scenario that everyone can kind of learn from and be able to implement there. I still have some work to do on that, but that is a goal for me because people, I want people to come to I want people to come to keynotes. I want people to be engaged, and I'm blessed that they do. I just know that feedback continues from these events and conferences, like you said, like it's exhausting. And I
Mhm.
want people to feel excited, feel engaged, learn. That's the feedback that I get, that I bring energy and engagement, and people learn. I want to continue to do that, but also know attention spans
Yeah.
are shorter. People want more value. They don't want something that they could read online in a blog. I don't want that. That's why it's always
Right.
Yeah.
to, panels can be a challenge if they're really well facilitated and they're very conversational. They're awesome. But if it's the moderator asking everybody the same question and there's
Yeah.
like 4 questions and you have 16
Right.
responses, I mean, that could have been a blog post. You know,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It could have been a
It could have been
pod.
a blog post.
Yeah,
yeah,
could have been a podcast interview. Could have been a podcast interview.
It's the new it could have been an email.
Yeah.
100%.
I love that. We'll kind of transitioning a little bit. When we last spoke, Chasing the Sun had evolved into a fractional chief wellbeing officer model. Could you talk about that a little bit, and then how has that expanded and shifted since?
Yeah, I think one of the real messages that I'm trying to help communicate here is what's the health of your employee. And I don't necessarily mean like your vitals or anything like that, but it's
Yeah.
things like, are you taking your time off? Are your benefits being used? Do you feel heard? Do you know what your role is there any ambiguity around expectations, around priorities? Do you feel like your career is supported, like where you're headed? Do you feel like you have that opportunity to give back to your community as part of your work? Does the company support volunteerism? Do you feel like you can have the opportunity to go out and meet people and connect either during the day or after work or whatever? And so to
Yeah.
me, that is around really about the well-being of your people. And the role that I'm trying to play with companies as a consultant is to help communicate things that perhaps have not been either received or understood by the employees to ultimately make them healthier. What that really means is it's that connective tissue between HR and your internal communications department to be that strategist to be able to help support how do we solve real problems in a work stream. And that could be a work stream of three for a small team, or a larger team within a Fortune 50 company, and everywhere in between. Because as I mentioned in the first episode, my main message around that is I think culture starts with the people you're spending most of your time with. It's not
Yeah.
all driven by your mission, vision, values. That's a part of it, but that has to be translated by the team and the realities of what that work stream is dealing with day in and day out. And so if I can play a role to be able to help think about what are the messages that people need to hear at a certain period of time. Again, I understood what's the challenge we're trying to solve. What's that quantifiable metric? It could be around paid time off increase usage. It could be around turnover. It could be around certain benefits usage. It could just be about advocacy for the brand, and everything in between. And so that's part of the model that I'm working with companies on. And it's been a fun ride so far, sort of building this and making a case for it. And and the companies that I speak with a lot also want me to speak about confidence.
Mm.
And I get a lot of interest in helping to talk about confidence at work and passion at work and being passionate about your work, which can be tricky. It can be very tricky to be able to talk about that. But how I message that is, how do you build the energy to be able to show up as your best self at work? So ultimately, it does benefit the individual and what that means for the team at large. So that's how things have evolved over the last few years. And I'm proud to be able to take my public relations, my communications background, and the strategic approach and the measurable approach, and think through, what are the big picture goals and what are the tactics, and not the tactics first, but everything else based on research, and thinking about also how are we evaluating this, and thinking about
Yeah.
what's important to the C-suite, what's important to board of directors, and really tying all this back to business results. And so that's a fun challenge, and it's just something I love being able to work with companies on and consult them for.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, with that in mind, what have been some of the things that you've been learning lately about like what
Yeah.
actually works to support employee well-being in the workplace? I know you've named like certain
Yeah.
certain
Yeah.
different things that are baseline, but yeah.
Well, I think, not to keep it simple, but I think it's things like transparency. It's be able to treat people
Yes.
like adults and
Mhm.
professionals. I've seen a lot in my career, and perhaps you as well, where you might be working with a manager who you sort of feel like you're in this 90-day trial with them when you're starting with them, and you sort of have to prove your worth, and
Yeah.
then you might pass some kind of test, and it's like you're being hired to do a job from day one. I'm going to trust you to do your job. Now we got to set you up for success. You might have to
Yeah.
learn about how things work here. You might have to learn about acronyms, those types of things. Related to that, another thing to think about is in the job description, during the interview, what is being talked about, like how life is like here. And
Yeah.
every company, every employee says, we love our people. We have a healthy culture. We're real nimble. We're real agile. Those are just filler words. We need to get
Yeah.
specific on what
Yeah.
that means. And so if that means, look, if you're going to join this company, we need you to work 60 hours a week, at least you're being transparent about that, right? At least
Yeah.
Yeah.
you're being upfront. The AT&T CEO just last week put out a memo to their employees that are really changing expectations around culture of their company. They want every employee back 5 days a week. There's really no more loyalty. Now, I may not agree with that approach, but I do appreciate the level of transparency that they gave and be able to say, look, these are expectations, and ultimately give it up, let the employee decide if they want to stay there, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather have that than somebody saying, no, we totally believe in balance. Like everybody clocks off at 5 o'clock. No one works on nights and weekends, and you go in and it's completely
The
different.
opposite.
Or you work with or the manager says, look, I want to give you complete autonomy. I need you to run with this. And then you are constantly micromanaged from day one. I mean, think about how that impacts our confidence, our sleep, all of those
Mm-hmm.
things. So those are the things, especially in this remote, hybrid, murky environment. We cannot assume how we're going to be working together, because it can make or break how much time we spend in our car, how much time we're
Mm-hmm.
spending online on nights and weekends. It impacts the confidence in how we provide counsel. So many other factors that just, again, impact, is my life better because
Yeah.
I work here? And so
Yeah.
Yeah.
those are the things that it might seem simple, but in the conversations I'm having with folks, there's a real need to address.
Yeah. I know that term agile, that to me just like
Yeah.
screams red flag. That's like, oh, you mean that you don't have priorities and we have to switch a lot. Like
Mhm.
they're code words for other
Yeah. It's like how
problematic
everybody
things.
says when you hear the term "we're all a big family" or like things like that. It's like there's the little red flags that we all know
Yeah.
now.
Run away.
Exactly.
Or I've been noticing on like job postings, they'll be like, we're hybrid, 4 days in office and 1 day at home. I'm like, you are mostly in
No.
office, like,
Right.
but those are like trigger or like keywords now that, you review and you're like, oh, well, at least they did tell me that my butt needs to be at work four
Right.
days a week,
Exactly. Well, and that's the thing is like just be honest about it. I actually a friend of mine, her husband recently started at a new company and they told him he only had to come in 1 day a week. And then on day one, as he was onboarding, they're like, okay, well, we'll see you tomorrow, right? And the day after. And he's like, wait, that's not what we discussed. It's
Yeah.
like they're trying to trick people
Mhm.
into
Yeah.
like trying to get them by saying, yeah, you can work remote, and then that turns out to not be the case.
Yeah, exactly. And there's value in coming into the office. This is the other
Yeah,
part of this. You're asking about
Totally.
well-being. You know, I am of the mindset that we need to have sort of different experiences at home versus in the office. If we're coming to the
yeah,
office, let's talk about ideation, collaboration, have real intent to network. If everybody comes in the office and they're on their laptop or on Zoom, what's the benefit, right? So there just
yeah,
has to be very prescriptive. The other part of this that I think companies skip when talking about coming into the office is what's in it for the customer, right?
Mhm.
Why does coming to the office benefit the customer? Now, very well might. I mean, if a company says that their performance or their customer satisfaction has decreased while people have been working remotely and they have the data to prove it, and they're ethically, getting that data, and there's a gap, then there's some rationale, right? But
Mhm.
a lot of us lived through the pandemic, through lockdown, and you know,
Did fine.
businesses businesses that
Yeah.
had to be at home were okay.
Yeah.
They've done all right. So but
figured it out.
they
Yeah,
figured it out. And back to the isolation thing, I think we have to get prescriptive about how we're spending time in the office, and that is at a team level. I don't
yeah,
know that a C-suite can mandate how that goes, because every department operates differently, and so I think it's up to those line managers, those executives at those particular teams, to be able to have that conversation around those expectations and say, we're going to come in Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and this is where we're going to focus on,
Mhm.
and get very specific on that. And so those are things that I lead conversations on, whether it's at an association event or when I'm consulting with my corporate clients.
Yeah. Well, that's so true because I feel like there's certain types of work too that like it would be nice not to have the distractions of like other people around. Like if you need to do like truly deep work like writing or like design work or something like that, it is nice to be in an environment where you don't have distractions, or, you know, you've got the folks who are having the water cooler talk over here and you're in your headphones and being like, okay,
Mhm.
don't come talk to me. I'm like in the zone doing
Mhm.
my thing. So, I mean, I feel like I can be so much more productive in my home office, but I like to socialize. So, yeah, I would love to be in a co working space where I'm like, you know, bouncing ideas across the table at somebody else. And like you said, that is really truly the things I think that you miss from having those in-person environments, is you don't have that kind of collective collaboration that you would normally have, because I need to now schedule a meeting with you and you know, say we're going to have this, you know, conversation and things like that. And we do have like a lot of tools like Slack and things like that, but it doesn't forego the face-to-face
Right.
conversation time
Absolutely.
as well.
Absolutely. It's so critical.
Yeah. So important. So it's 2025. It's been a weird year for a lot of different reasons that we can go into or not. But how do you think that's impacted your business specifically, and then also the people that you're working with? I feel like the conversations you have, the topics that you're talking about, there has to have been a pretty big shift this year. So what does that look like for you?
Well, I think for one, there's when people want to hear from speakers talk about really timely topics, everything revolves around AI, and I think that is obviously of importance for so many reasons, right? And so not only in the real time and thinking about what's going to how that going to impact people's jobs,
Yeah.
but kind of bigger and more impactful, how are people going to embrace it in their jobs,
Yeah.
and how do companies help their employees use that, use our technology to their advantage. And so,
Yeah.
as I'm thinking about how to talk about that, because I there are a lot of other people who speak about that and want to focus that. My mission is to empower people to shine, and that is not going to change. You were talking about how business has evolved, but I've that mission has stayed the same and is not going to
Yeah.
change. So how I think about it is how do teams embrace that so that they have the energy to do their job, and how do people think about their careers in a different way. I think that's part of it. I also think the sort of back and forth with companies from a budget standpoint, and we know about the ripple effect around tariffs
Mm-hmm.
and purchasing decisions, which has a trickle effect on everything about people's purchasing decisions.
Yeah.
I work with various governments, local, state, federal government on things. I've worked with them in the past, and so how those sorts of decisions are made and impacting the budget from a leadership and development standpoint, sort of have an impact as well. So I think, for me, how I'm definitely keeping on track on that but at the same time, I know that because of what's happening in society, the advent of AI, but even more so, just the impact of isolation. Even myself, someone who works by himself here at Chasing the Sun HQ. I have my incredible wife, my dog Molly. Uh, as an extrovert, I get energy by seeing
Being with
people,
people.
and
Yeah.
so I feel this myself, and so I'm thinking about personally how I'm wanting to get reconnected with the Portland community, and all those things. So I'm not isolated here day in and day out, and I'm not living and breathing it. But really, what I want to do is be able to talk about this throughout my talks around employee culture and
Yeah.
well-being. I don't really talk about how to lose weight. I don't at all. I mean, really, in any of my talks, I don't. I share it as part of my background and how I came to be, but I'm not talking about diet programs. I'll talk about exercise as it relates to your mental health. Everyone should be working out 20 minutes a day. It's good for your sleep and your
Mhm.
mindset and everything. But I am trying to take these themes and look at how this impacts the well-being of yourself as an individual and also relationship with your team. And I think we've all experienced this, as folks growing up in the internet age, you're used to a certain cadence of new technology coming out, whether it's software or hardware, and it feels like, especially from the AI standpoint, it's accelerated significantly. And I think that's the other part of this, is that it can seem very overwhelming to keep up to date on it. And I think part of it is just recognizing that as long as you're aware of it and you're trying stuff out little by little, that's okay. We cannot all expect to be on top of it, because we could spend our whole lives trying to test prompts and everything like that. So, that's a long-winded answer. But that's sort of
it's a good one, though.
Sort of how I'm thinking about these. For one thing, I this fall, I haven't really written a book, and so I'm going to put together an ebook that I'm going to give away as part of like a lead magnet. But it's going to encompass all of my columns. I have 80 columns that I've written over the last few years, and so
wow,
so I have all this content, and so what I want to do is I want to be able to provide it in a very actionable way for my audience to be able to say, how to run a meeting, how to create a workplace charter, how to set up your PTO, like all these things that I think people need and want, and I can be a resource to them. But as part of that, I want to be able to create ChatGPT prompts for them to be able to say, okay, you have this, like, have AI help partner you and be able to develop this for your team, right? And so that's how I'm trying to embrace this technology, and also not see my IP and me giving my IP as a threat to me growing my business as a speaker, because it's about giving away the information and feeling like I can still provide value in this different way, right? And so that, that's another way to really kind of round out your question, is trying to embrace this as much as possible and put it through the lens of my mission, and really thinking about what is my ultimate objective. It's about securing keynote speeches and the revenue opportunities that come out of that. And so I want to be able to provide valuable information for folks so that they can subscribe to my newsletter, engage with me. I can build trust with them. And then over time, because these leads for keynotes, I mean, it's not right away. There's not always like a corporate event or something like that, but 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year. I mentioned, opportunities in 2027 to 2028. It's just kind of how those lead times go.
Yeah.
And so that is another big learning that I've had since launching Chase to the Sun. It's just realizing things don't happen overnight. And so
that's a good point.
That's how I'll close with that. So answer.
That was a really great answer. And it's a good reminder that things don't happen overnight. I love how you're using, sorry, Ashlyn.
Oh no, you're good. Good.
I was just gonna say, I love the creativity of like, okay, how do we use AI to help us? There's a lot of like pro versus against, AI. But I think it's like, okay, well, it's here. And like, how can we use it in our systems and our businesses to help each other, And I just think that's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's a challenge because it's up to us to figure out how to use it. It's there. And so it's, it's sort of like the opposite of encyclopedias. We want to learn about a topic, and then we go to the encyclopedia and we learn about it. We go on Wikipedia, we go on the internet to learn about it. Now it's sort of, we want it to replace our tasks. And so it's trying to first get out of that mindset of saying, no, we're supposed to be doing the task, but able to figure out how it's going to help you. And a lot of that is about, learning sort of the equation and, to put together a prompt and then figure out what to do with it. And, there's also all the legal and ethical aspects of that. Like that's critical, but I think it's, how do we embrace creativity in a new way for us? And we've only scratched the surface of this, and I think that's the challenge and the opportunity, right? And so there's a lot to come, but we as humanity are going to do all we can to show up and use it for good. So as far as the three of us are concerned.
Honestly, it's so, I mean, once you figure out how to do the prompts and get what you want, like I love my dad dearly. He messaged me the other day and he's like, how do I move all my stuff to Hawaii from like Oregon? And I was like, okay. I was like, oh, damn, I don't want to do this for you. And I was like, wait, I can put it in Chat GPT and I can put, like basically layered it out. I was like, it's a 4-bedroom house. We're moving from here in Oregon to here in Hawaii. Tell
Oh,
me
that's
like,
so smart.
yeah, I was like, tell me the moving companies, tell me the freight companies and all of this. And it spit out stuff. I sent it to my dad in an email and I was like, here you go. Call, like the internet just sourced this, call these places, look at these websites. Here you go. I was like, because I am too busy to call them for you. And he is retired. But I was like, I was dreading it because I was like, oh God, this is gonna take me so long to do. I'm like, wait, it's not if I just do this. So yeah, it can be a huge time savings, I think, for a lot of folks, as long as you learn how to do the search in it. So yeah.
Yeah. I love that. That's also super creative way to use it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I have our second to last question.
Oh,
And it is, if every workplace made one well-being commitment tomorrow, what would you want it to be?
I think it's around just a simple dedication to treating people like adults, treating people like professionals, being transparent. We mentioned this a few minutes ago. I just think it saves people time. It saves people stress. I think people respect and appreciate those who are upfront and honest about situations. I remember one time in my agency time, um, there was going to be an all employee meeting and the executives didn't want to show all the financials because the agency wasn't doing that great financially. And they were afraid that the junior staff, those who are 24, 25, 26 years old, would be scared. I'm like, these are people who can, buy cigarettes, they can buy alcohol, they can enlist for the army, they can get married, they're adult, they pay taxes, and yet we don't trust them with the financials on, and I just, there is a line, of course. I mean, but I think if we start with the mindset of trusting our people with information and treating them like adults, the better it's going to be for everybody. If not only for the relationship between the employee and the employer, but between the employee and their manager, because as we know, we're not all at the same job for 40 years, not even 20 years really anymore, not even 10 or 5. And so your boss is going to become maybe your direct one day or vice versa. And so your client or your partner, and it's how they treat each other that's going to impact future chapters. And so that's the one thing. It's just treating people like adults, being more transparent, open, and honest. It will help solve a lot of challenges.
Yeah.
It's so simple, and yet we don't naturally do it.
For a number of reasons. We're scared about what people are going to say. They're scared they're going to be upset at us. They don't want to be the deliverer of bad news. They don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. A number of they might feel threatened by somebody. That if for whatever reason they might leave or might join a different department. How many times have we seen in our career a manager wanting to suppress? I don't know if suppress is the right word, but be able to, kind of make sure that their employees don't leave or go to whatever, because that they might be smarter than them.
Totally. I definitely experienced that where there was like an internal opening and I was like, I want to apply for that. And my manager like tried to talk me out of it. And I was like, well, fuck you. I'm applying for it. Like that tells me even more that I should go for it. Kind of
I can't
thing.
lose you, Ashlyn. I can't lose you. What would I do with, there's all types of things that I think, let's think bigger picture. Let's think, what the relationship would be like 3, 5, 10 years down the road. Unfortunately, a lot of people just don't think that way. But it seems simple, but it's difficult to master, and that's part of the role that I try to play. And it's just been an honor.
That's awesome. That's a really great answer, and honestly, great advice for your personal life too. Let's just treat everybody like adults.
I
love that.
More.
I love that. I love that. Well, Mark, before we kind of wrap it up, we ask this question to all of our guests because we're in the process of, I don't know, creating a list or something of these recommendations. But we want to know what your favorite or current movie, book, podcast, or piece of media that you're really just digging right now.
Oh my gosh. Well, there's a great speaker related podcast as I look at my podcast app called Speakernomics.
Nice.
It's by the National Speaker Association, and so they have a
Okay.
great podcast that they host all every week. They give kind of very actionable tips for speakers who are looking to build their career.
Nice.
Let me go off camera real quick and talk about a quick book here. Hold on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is oops. I just well, I'll just hold it. I just spoke in Omaha for a conference for PR folks, marketers, and advertisers, and I met someone named Lynn Wyman who runs a firm called Kid Glove in Omaha. Works a lot with nonprofits, and she wrote this book. I don't know if you can see it. It's called Untangling
Untangling.
Sticky Spaghetti.
Oh, I love
And
it.
it goes through kind of a story, about revising brands, and it's in kind of this narrative form. And so I really, really love it. And she launched it, and so
Nice.
I just saw that and was really proud of it. So I think those resources, and there's so many we could talk all day about all
Oh yeah.
the wonderful stuff. But yeah, those are the first things that came up.
That's awesome.
Top
I
of my
love it.
head.
Great answer. Great
That's
answer. Well, we've come to the end of our questions and kind of the end here. Before we wrap up, I just want to ask you, is there anything you want us to chat about before we leave? How can people find you? Et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, well, my website is chasingthesunpdx.com. I am very active on LinkedIn, and you can check out my speaker reel, and I talk a lot about employee culture, well-being, communication, empathy. I just want people to shine in the family room and in the boardroom, and it's just been an honor the last few years to do so, and look forward to continuing, and look forward to seeing all of you out on the road. And if you're looking for a keynote speaker on any of those topics, I'd love to chat.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mark. It was such a pleasure to have you back.
Okay.
If we can do this for like 1,000 more seasons, you'll be on every one of them if you want to be.
I want to be on season 5, 7, whatever. And again, as I said, I'm so proud of both of you, and I love that you love doing this, and I love that you love having the conversations just as much as the listeners. But just know you put together such a great product, and as a representative of the services that you offer, and it's just an honor to be here and be part of our respective entrepreneur journeys. And so you really lift me up, and it's wonderful to see.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That made my day. I'm going to go after this. I'm going to sign off work and I'm going to feel good. So thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
Well, thank you to our audience and everyone tuning in this week. And thank you for being here. And we will be in your ears again next week. If you want to reach out to us before then, shoot us an Instagram DM or email us at aloha@taketheleap-today.com. And in the meantime, have a great week, everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Take the Leap podcast. Check out our show notes to connect with us and our guests. If you have questions about the episode or ideas for future topics, send us a direct message on Instagram or email us at aloha@taketheleap-today.com. If you're interested in being a guest, fill out the guest interest form on our website.
If you're a new entrepreneur who is looking for a roadmap to move your business idea forward, check out the Take the Leap course on our website, taketheleap-today.com. Members who join the course also have an opportunity to join us in bi-weekly co-working and group coaching calls to build momentum and work on your business.
And if you'd like a flavor of what we offer, sign up for our free webinar with the 9 essential steps you need to launch your business with clarity and confidence. See you next time.